Step inside the gate, friend. The evening air is just beginning to take on that lovely, sharp chill. It is so good to see you've made it back to the valley before the light has completely slipped behind those pine-covered ridges. I was just standing here on the stone path, watching the first of the stars blink into life above the Watermill, and thinking how the world seems to hold its breath right at this moment. You look like you've walked a fair distance today, and I can see the weight of the wide world still clinging to your shoulders, like a heavy winter cloak. Why don't we just stand here for a moment and let the sound of that water wash the dust of the day away? Nothing is required of you here tonight. No maps to read, no clocks to watch, and certainly no problems that can't wait for the sun to find them again. We are safely tucked away in our little corner of the world, and the only thing on the agenda is a bit of rest. Can you see the way the lanterns are glowing against the old stone of the mill? That warm amber light is reflecting right there in the churn of the river, dancing over the rocks. It's a welcoming sight, isn't it? My old friend the miller used to say that the mill never really sleeps. It just hums a lower tune when the moon comes out. Look at the way the moss has claimed the roof over the years. A soft green blanket that keeps the heat in and the noise out. And those little cottages just up the path, with the smoke curling so lazily from their chimneys. They're all settling in for the night, just like we're about to do. There's a certain peace in knowing that the rest of the valley is closing its eyes, pulling up the quilts, and letting the night take over. We're going to do the same. But first, I think we should get you inside where the hearth is crackling. I've spent the afternoon tidying up the kitchen, and I've got a fresh bundle of lavender and some dried valerian sitting on the table, just waiting to be turned into a proper deep sleep tea. The river provides the power for the stones, but it also provides the most wonderful that keeps my herb garden happy. Can you smell the damp earth and the pine needles on the breeze? It's a clean smell, isn't it? It's the smell of things being exactly where they are supposed to be. Don't worry about those heavy thoughts you brought with you. We'll just leave them right here on the porch steps. They won't catch cold, and they certainly won't follow us through the door. This mill is a place of heavy timber and thick stone. It's a safe harbour, and nothing but quiet is allowed inside tonight. Let's follow the light of that lantern by the door. We'll cross the little wooden bridge over the stream. The stones can be a bit smooth here, and head toward the glow. I've already got the kettle near the fire, and it won't be long now before we have something warm in our hands. The valley is watching over us, and the river is singing its oldest song, just for you. It's time to step out of the rush and into the hush. Shall we? The latch clicks home with a solid, reassuring thud, and suddenly the roar of the river outside is transformed into this low, rhythmic thrum that vibrates right through the soles of our boots. We are truly inside now, wrapped in the scent of seasoned cedar and the lingering sweetness of the afternoon's baking, with the hearth light painting everything in shades of honey and bronze. You can hang your cloak right here on this peg. It's hand-carved from a branch of the old apple tree that fell 2 winters ago. And let the heat of the room start to uncurl those tight places in your spirit. The stone walls of this mill are nearly 3 feet thick, and they have a way of holding on to the sun's warmth long after the moon has taken over the sky, creating a silence that feels almost tangible. I've pulled the large leather armchair, the one with the deep, welcoming buttons, right up to the edge of the hearth rug, so you can settle in while I tend to the fire. There is a specific way the oak logs need to be balanced against the kindling to keep the flames dancing just so. And as I give them a little nudge with the iron poker, a flurry of golden sparks chases itself up the chimney. On nights like this, when the mountain runoff has the river running high, the mill starts to find its voice in a way that always makes me feel like the house itself is breathing. It's a deep, grounding chord that seems to harmonize with the crackle of the wood, and I find it's the most wonderful cure for a mind that has spent too much time in the rush of the world. There is no room for heavy thoughts when the floorboards are singing like this. The vibration simply fills up all those little gaps where a worry might try to take root, leaving only the present moment. We have a bit of a ritual here for when the valley settles into its slumber, and it begins with simply acknowledging that the journey is over for the day. You aren't on the path anymore, and there are no more miles to keep track of. You are right here, in a safe harbor made of timber and stone. I'm keeping an eye on the copper kettle hanging over the fire, and I can see the first few wisps of steam starting to curl lazily from the spout, though it isn't quite ready to sing its song just yet. While the water finds its heat, I'm going to gather the herbs I laid out on the windowsill earlier today, the lavender and the valerian that have been soaking up the afternoon light. It's a beautiful thing to see the firelight catching the glass of the jars on the shelves, turning every container of dried leaves into a treasure chest of amber and emerald. The world beyond our valley can be as loud as it likes, but in here, we answer only to the rhythm of the waterwheel and the soft sighs of the settling logs. Let's just let that heavy, comforting hum from the machinery settle into our bones for a minute. There's a certain kind of peace that comes from being exactly where you are meant to be, with nothing required of you but to exist in the warmth. I'll just step over to the heavy workbench where I keep the mortar and pestle, as the moonlight is just beginning to slant through the high window. The wood of this workbench is scarred with the stories of 1,000 quiet evenings. Each notch and ring a testament to the slow work of the seasons. I've set out the lavender I gathered earlier, and even now, just resting there in those tied bundles, it's beginning to release that clean, floral scent that tells the brain the day is truly done. Can you see the way the candlelight makes the edges of the purple petals glow? It's a soft, flickering sort of light, far kinder than the glare of the sun, and it seems to make the shadows in the corners of the mill feel like old friends rather than empty spaces. I'll start by taking a few of these dried stems, carefully so as not to bruise them too early, and laying them out on the rough-hewn timber right next to this little copper kettle. This kettle has a bit of a temper if you don't treat it right, but once it gets going, it produces the most musical steam you've ever heard. It's already starting to puff out those lazy, curling plumes that dance against the glass of the window. If you look past the steam, you can see the village lights across the river, just tiny pinpricks of amber against the deep blue of the night. They look so far away, don't they? It makes our little stone sanctuary feel even more tucked away, like we're the only two people left in the world who aren't in a hurry. I like to think the mill acts as a sort of anchor for the whole valley, keeping everything grounded while the water does the heavy lifting of keeping time. There's a specific secret to this Miller's Sleep blend that I'll let you in on. Most people think you just throw the herbs in and hope for the best. But the lavender needs to feel the draft from the mill race first. I leave the bundles right here on the sill, where the cool, damp air from the churning wheel can brush against them. It keeps the oils from becoming too sharp, rounding out the flavor into something that feels like a velvet blanket for your senses. I'm going to take this small wooden pestle now. It's made of olive wood and fits the palm of my hand perfectly, and begin the crushing. Listen to that sound. The dry, rhythmic crunch, crunch of the leaves surrendering their fragrance to the room. It's a slow-motion task, and there's no need to rush it. We have all the time in the world, or at least all the time that matters between now and tomorrow's sunrise. As the lavender breaks down, the scent is going to get much stronger, a thick wave of purple peace that will settle over that armchair you're sitting in. It's the kind of smell that doesn't just sit in your nose, it settles behind your eyes, smoothing out all those jagged edges left behind by the noise of the world. I've always felt that the river provides the rhythm, but the herbs provide the soul of the evening. We'll just add a pinch of these dried valerian roots as well. They're a bit more earthy, grounding the floral notes so the tea doesn't feel too flighty. It's all about balance, isn't it? Just like the way the great wooden gears outside balance the power of the water against the weight of the stone. We're doing the same thing here on a much smaller scale, balancing the heat of the fire against the coolness of the night to find that perfect middle ground where sleep can finally find us. I'll just reach for that weathered tin on the shelf now. The wood of the table feels warm and solid beneath my hands as I set down the mortar, right next to this remarkable little treasure I've been saving for just such an occasion. This is the Miller's Brent blend, held within a tin so weathered and storied it feels like a piece of the mill's own history. If you look closely at the side of the metal, right there where the candlelight hits the filigree, you can see the intricate carvings and the date, established 1742, etched into the surface as a permanent mark of its long journey. It was a gift from a traveller many, many years ago, a wandering soul who found shelter here during a particularly fierce winter storm, and left this behind as a token of gratitude. I often wonder about the hands that held this tin before mine, and the many midnight conversations it has quietly overheard while the river churned outside the window. It's a silent witness to 1,000 such moments, and there's something deeply comforting about using an object that has survived so much time just to be here with us tonight. Can you see the way the steam from your mug is rising in those lazy, translucent curls, catching the light from the hearth behind us? I've placed it right there on the coaster for you, within easy reach of the leather chair, so you don't even have to stretch your arm to take a sip. Beside it sits my old leather-bound ledger and the quill I use to keep track of the grain. But those are tools for the morning. Tonight, they are just part of the scenery, resting as we are. The tin itself has a heavy, satisfying clunk when you set it down on the oak planks, a sound that feels as anchored and permanent as the stone walls surrounding us. I like to think that the tea inside has absorbed some of that steadiness over the years. When I lift the lid, the aroma is different from the fresh lavender. It's deeper, with notes of ancient woods and a hint of spice that seems to speak of far-off places. It's a traveler's tea, designed to bring the weary back to themselves, no matter how far they've wandered or how much noise they've had to endure. I'll just use this silver spoon to measure out a small portion, listening to the soft metallic scrape against the bottom of the tin. It's a tiny sound, but in the hush of the mill, it feels significant, like we're partaking in a secret that the rest of the world has forgotten. The village across the water is almost entirely dark now, save for one or two lonely lanterns, and even the river seems to be softening its roar as the moon climbs higher into the sky. We are tucked away in our own little pocket of time, where the only thing that matters is the temperature of the water and the slow unfurling of the tea leaves. You don't need to say a word. I can see the firelight reflecting in your eyes, and that's conversation enough for me. We'll let the blend steep for exactly 5 minutes, the time it takes for the heavy gears of the mill to make one full, laborious rotation. There's a certain kind of magic in waiting, isn't there? It forces the world to slow down to our pace, rather than the other way around. I'll just stand here by the table for a moment and admire the way the inkwell and the glass vial glow like jewels in the half-light. I should probably take a quick look at the main drive shaft before we settle in for good. The floorboards hum with a deeper vibration over here, closer to where the massive oak beams meet the mechanical heart of the house. It's a wonderful bit of engineering, really. All these interlocking teeth and smooth-worn axles working in perfect, slow-motion harmony to turn the river's energy into something useful. I've always felt that the machinery needs a bit of a kind word and a watchful eye to keep it spinning smoothly through the night, much like an old, tired friend who just needs to know they're appreciated. I'll just reach for the oil can I keep tucked behind this stack of blankets on the shelf. The gears have a specific way of singing when they're happy, and I want to make sure they're in good voice for your rest. Look at the scale of that main wheel through the open bay. It's absolutely drenched in moonlight, turning the spray into a shower of falling silver coins. It's quite a contrast, isn't it? The raw, cold power of the river out there, and the warm, organized ticking of the gears in here. I often come over to this side of the room just to watch the way the shadows of the spokes dance across the stone hearth. It's a rhythmic, hypnotic sort of play that reminds me that the world keeps turning, even when we've decided to stop for the night. There's no rush in these wheels, no frantic hurry to get to the next task, just the steady, patient application of weight and wood. I'm going to apply just a drop or two of linseed oil to this spindle right here. Can you hear that? The tiny squeak hush is replaced by a deep, it's a small thing, but small things are what make a home feel safe. We spend so much of our lives dealing with grand, complicated problems that we forget how much peace can be found in simply tending to what is right in front of us. This mill has stood for a century because it was cared for, one gear and one stone at a time. And I think there's a lesson in that for those of us who feel a bit frayed at the edges. I've left a few extra quilts and pillows on the bench by the gears, just in case the draft from the Waterwheel gets a bit too spirited later on. The air over here is always a little fresher, smelling of wet stone and ancient timber, which is a lovely change from the heavy scent of the lavender by the table. I like to imagine the mill is a living creature, and right now, we're just making sure its heartbeat is steady and slow. Everything is exactly where it needs to be. The fire is banked, the tea is steeping, and the great wheels are turning with a grace that only comes with age. There is a certain comfort in knowing that something this large and powerful is working on our behalf while we simply exist. You don't have to carry the momentum of your life tonight. You can let the river and the gears take over that job for a while. They are much stronger than we are, and they don't mind the weight. I'll just tighten this one leather belt. It's original to the mill, you know, and still as supple as the day it was tanned. And then we'll head back to the warmth of the chairs. The tea should be at that perfect, drinkable temperature by now, and the moonlight is starting to reach the very center of the rug. I'll just grab my lantern from the post and join you. The light of the lantern casts long, dancing shadows across the floorboards as we make our way back to where the 2 leather armchairs are waiting, positioned perfectly to take in the view of the churning water. There's no more tinker work to be done tonight. The gears are humming their contented song, and the hearth is throwing out a steady crimson glow that reaches all the way to the heavy stone archway of the window. I've set your mug right there on the small wooden table between us, and you can see the steam rising in thin, ghostly ribbons against the dark silhouette of the Waterwheel. Go ahead and lean back into those cushions. They've been warmed by the fire all evening and have just the right amount of give to hold you exactly as you are. It's a rare thing to sit in a silence that doesn't feel empty, isn't it? In the world out there, silence often feels like a gap waiting to be filled with noise or worry. But in here, it's a solid thing, thick with the scent of wood smoke and damp earth. We're just going to watch the moonlight catch the foam of the river for a while. If you look across the bank, the village has finally doused its last few lamps, leaving nothing but the deep, velvety blue of the forest and the occasional flicker of a firefly in the reeds. It feels as though the entire valley has collectively decided to let go of the day, and we are the only ones left awake to witness the river's midnight performance. I love how the Waterwheel seems to turn the light into silver foam every time a paddle hits the surface. It's a rhythmic, hypnotic sight that makes the passage of time feel like a physical movement rather than something to be measured or managed. There's a specific kind of permission that comes with watching something that has been doing the exact same thing for 100 years. It reminds us that we don't always have to be moving forward or achieving. Sometimes, just being a witness to the night is the most productive thing a person can do. We'll just sit here for a moment, letting the warmth of the tea seep through the ceramic and into our palms, and let the heart rate find its own quiet tempo. Can you feel the way the air in the room has softened? It's lost that sharp edge it had when we first stepped in from the path, replaced by a heavy amber stillness that makes every breath feel a little easier to take. The ginger cat has finally decided that the rug by the hearth is the best place to be, and the sound of his rhythmic purring is just one more layer in our little orchestra of peace. There is nowhere else we need to be, and nothing else we need to think about. The mill is doing all the thinking for us, its great wooden heart beating steadily against the stone. I'll just take a small sip of my own brew and listen to the way the fire settles. Every few minutes, a log shifts with a soft thump and a shower of sparks, a reminder that the hearth is keeping its own time. It's a comfortable, shared space we've made here, And the best part is that it doesn't require a single word to maintain it. We are simply two souls resting in the hush, letting the river wash away the last of the world's static. The steam from your mug is starting to thin out now, a sign that the tea is ready to do its work. I'll just reach over and adjust the wick on the lantern, turning it down until the flame is nothing more than a tiny golden heartbeat. The stones of the kitchen nook are still radiating that deep, slow heat from the afternoon's cooking, making the air back here feel like a warm hug as I step away from the chairs to pour our brew. There's something remarkably grounding about a kitchen at midnight, isn't there? It's the heart of the home, even when the rest of the world has gone to sleep. And out here, the scent of the tea is mixing with the faint, lingering smell of dried herbs and the seasoned wood of the pantry shelves. I've set the two ceramic mugs, the ones with the speckled blue glaze that looks like a stormy sea, right here on the heavy oak table. If you look at the surface of the tea, you can see the steam rising in thick, lazy curls, dancing in the light of the two candles I've lit to keep us company. The copper pots hanging from the rafters seem to be glowing with their own sleepy amber light, catching every flicker of the hearth fire from the other room and turning it into a soft, metallic pulse. Everything in here has a place, and everything is at rest. The ladles are tucked into their jars, the heavy stone mortar is silent, and even the shadows seem to move with a deliberate, slow-motion grace. I'm going to use this silver spoon to give the brew one last gentle stir. Listen to the way the metal clicks against the ceramic. It's a small, domestic sound, but in the quiet of the mill, it feels like a punctuation mark on the end of a long, busy sentence. I find that on nights when the river is high, the kitchen becomes a sort of sound box, amplifying the rhythmic thump, slosh of the waterwheel until it feels as though the very walls are breathing with us. You can see the wheel through the window right there, a massive dark silhouette cutting through the moonlit spray and turning the water into silver dust. It's a constant, patient movement that doesn't ask for our attention, but offers it anyway, like a guardian keeping watch while we finally let our guard down. The energy in the mill has shifted now. It's no longer about preparing or doing, but simply about receiving the quiet that we've earned. I'll just let the steam from these mugs continue to rise and vanish against the stone. A tiny reminder that even the most persistent thoughts eventually thin out and disappear if you give them enough space. We aren't in a hurry to get back to those armchairs, and we certainly aren't in a hurry to reach the bottom of these mugs. There is a great deal of medicine in a slow pour and a steady hand. I'm noticing the way the candlelight is reflecting in that blue jar on the shelf. It looks like a star caught in a bottle. Small wonders are everywhere in this kitchen, if you're still enough to see them. The world beyond the window is just a collection of dark shapes and distant forest. But in here, we are surrounded by things that are warm, solid, and known. I'll just pick up these two mugs now, they're quite hot, and carry them back to our spot by the fire. The ginger cat hasn't moved an inch, and the river hasn't missed a beat. We are perfectly in sync with the night, and the tea is exactly as it should be. I'll just take one last look at the village lights across the water, noting how they've all finally winked out before I step back into the glow of the main room. it's time to let the rest of the world go entirely. The floorboards creak with a familiar, sleepy groan as I set your tea down on the little side table one last time, right next to the soft glow of the fairy lights. It is a fine thing to see you so settled in that chair, tucked under the heavy wool blanket, with nothing left to do but listen to the river's long, steady conversation with the stone. The mill is finally easing into its rhythmic, ancient slumber, and even the great wooden wheel outside seems to be turning with a softer, more melodic splash as the night deepens. I can see the ginger cat is already far ahead of us, stretched out on the rug in a perfect golden curve, his paws twitching ever so slightly as he dreams of catching moonbeams on the water. You have done enough for one day, and there is no need to keep watch over your thoughts anymore. I'll take the first watch, and the river will take the rest. Can you see the way the moonlight is spilling through the large open bay, illuminating the bridge and the quiet cottages across the way, like a scene from a forgotten storybook? It's a peaceful world when the sun isn't making demands of us, isn't it? Everything is at rest. The jars of herbs are dark on their shelves. The ledgers are closed on the desk, and the fire has burned down to a beautiful, pulsing bed of amber coals that will keep the room cozy until dawn. I'm going to step back into my own corner now, just over by the workbench, to finish up a few small things in the shadows. Don't feel you need to stay awake on my account. The steam from your mug is rising in the most patient, slow-motion spirals, and the smell of the lavender is thick enough now to act as a physical pillow for your mind. If your eyes start to feel heavy, just let them close. The mill knows the way through the night, and it will keep the rhythm steady while you drift. The sounds of the water and the occasional snap of the wood in the hearth are all the company you need from here on out. It is a quiet joy to have you back in the valley, friend. We'll talk of the road and the wide world some other time, when the sun is high and the tea is fresh. But for now, the only thing that matters is this hush. The embers are low, the river is singing, and the house is safe. Rest well, and let the song of the Waterwheel carry you wherever you need to go. Good night, for now.